November 20th. We're going to start off with a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Olson and then an opening prayer by Councilman Sands. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we are thankful that you are the God of creation, God of the universe. We ask that you would come alongside us this evening, that you would give us your wisdom, help us to operate prudently as we do the city's business. We're thankful for the staff. We're thankful for our residents, and we're just blessed to be here in Tokerville. We do humbly ask that you would bless us with some rain, a good snowpack this season, and that we can restore our reservoirs, the Great Salt Lake, Lake Powell, Lake Mead. We are thankful again to gather here this evening. We lift up these prayers in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Wayne. We're going to move on to approval. Oh, before we do that, does anyone else have an alternate prayer or opening statement they'd like to bring forth? All right, we are going to move on to approval of the agenda. Everybody like the short agenda that Ben put together for us this evening?
Yes.
All right, I just need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any declarations of conflict?
No, sir.
Beautiful. All right, we're going to move on to consent agenda. Review and possible approval of meeting minutes from November 6, 2024 City Council meeting.
The minutes look good, Mayor. I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the November 6th City Council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a pair of seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Review and possible approval of city expenditures from October 2024. Everybody had a chance to look at those and make sure everything looked good?
Yeah.
Looks like nothing stood up to me, so.
I'll make a motion that we approve the city expenditures for October 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the expenditures? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Darren LaFever up for our Tocqueville Parkway update. You got anything?
Yeah, I do. And I have Emily pull up the pictures real quick for you. I don't know if this will work, but I'll try. Essentially, starting, one of the things I just wanted to start with, give you kind of an update on Firelight phases 1 and 2. As you can see from the picture right there, that's their main entrance on phase 2. You can see the house that they've been building off in the distance there. That's the home that they've taken it upon themselves to get that built. This is just another photo. That's phases 1 and 2 together. You can see the last picture was up at the top on the north end there. Like I say, the main entrance is actually down there where you can see that landscape area in the middle of the road, the island, and it's coming along very nicely. They have a few more things to do. They are pushing to try to record the plat as per the MOU that was signed by mid-December, sometime in that time. And just in a minute, I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but things are moving along very well. There again is just the entrance. Moving on is essentially looking at the sand pocket. UDOT this week has actually, in an email, they've said, go ahead, let's get this signed and get the contractor out there working on that sand pocket. So you can see the sand pocket as it's where it's at this point in stage as far as it's sloughing away. Essentially on that, Jim Nordquist, he is working, he got his report to UDOT, which they needed, and so they're moving forward. The next one really is just coming to the Hogs Back. The big question, or the big thing that we were trying to alleviate Ben and I and the mayor and Councilman Campbell will have a meeting this week with UDOT to discuss this cut and how we're going to continue to mitigate what's going on here. This was of this morning. You can see that south side cut has been taken almost all the way down. They're just basically continuing some small cleanup. They have maybe 1 or 2 trucks every hour taking material away at this point in time. Over on the
wet spot that's on the surface, is that something that keeps grounding or coming out?
It's not wet. It looks wet.
That lower
Yeah.
spot's not wet?
It's not wet. It's like just a different color of clay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I asked them about if they were getting any wet spots. They said that they haven't been adding water on that for a long time. And it does look wet. It does. You're right.
Yeah.
I thought it's just a different color of material there. You can kind of see there. I've had a lot of people ask me if that big boulder on the north side fell off the top. It did not. That came from the south side. So essentially, off in the distance there, I can't really zoom in on it, but the power pole. So we have this view right there gives you kind of an idea where they put that perimeter fence along the top, so that you can see that where it comes down at the bottom there, just before it falls off the cliff edge, is the property corner of that lot there. So there you can see how close they are to that. It's working pretty well. We actually today received the preliminary draft for the south side from AGEC on their on that. So everything's going forward with that one. We're still trying to get the one on the north. Should be pretty much shortcoming. I know that Bob Lamro with Stanley is continuing to work with them, pushing as hard as he can to get those reports finished. But then, so the other thing that I've been working with is Rocky Mountain Power. So right there by the those mailboxes, those collection boxes, you can see 2 power poles, that one and that one. Emily's kind of, the one on the right is TDS, and that goes across and hooks into the power pole on the north. So you can see the power pole on the north. Both of those together are having to come down with the power pole. So we're trying to coordinate that. I have been trying to coordinate that. I've received the cost to do a civil design. If you can see on the right-hand side there, the entrance to Choya Creek, just towards that very top, there is a power vault right there. That is where the power will come from. Once this power pole goes down, it'll come out of that vault right there, where you can see that right in that area, and go up to the entrance to the cemetery, and then come across to the poles and go back up and head to the north on the power poles. That's kind of the conceptual design at this point.
Now,
And then,
real quick, can I butt in?
You bet.
They're bringing the power line from the substation to go under. Can we use the vaults that are we gonna be able to use any of that, or do we don't need to use that to get to that?
no, we don't need those.
Okay, we
I'll
don't
show
need
you here in
those.
just a
Okay,
second. I'll show you here in
Sorry.
just a second. No, you're good. No problem at all. So in essence, we are, it's not working. Maybe just go forward. Could you go forward one for me? There you go. So see that that vault at the bottom of the screen, where the T intersection, it's in that where the asphalt is. That's where they got to come to
Okay.
from the substation up to that point. If you came from the south, just tonight, they're boring right now underneath the asphalt. They've got it shut down to 1 lane. And so they're doing traffic control and all of that in the dark, which is no fun. But UDOT has required them to do 1 more bore, or at least 1 more attempt before they can actually just trench the asphalt. And if they have to go to that, they will trench across the entrance to Trail Ridge Estates, as well as across up along that Jersey barrier, the concrete barrier, as you're making the right-hand turn. And then they will jump across and get into that vault you can
If
see.
that happens, do we have to let the 4-letter word that starts with F know about that, because we're going along the river? I don't want to say FEMA.
Oh,
But,
no,
you
we're
know.
not in we're still, yeah, we still have the same, we have the active permits that are still in
Okay.
place right
I just
now.
want to make sure that if we cut along that river right there, we're not in violation.
We're not cutting it. It's not us.
No, I know
our
it's not
contract.
us, but our
It's-
project.
Yeah, it's Rocky Mountain Powers, yeah.
Okay.
But yes, no, that, we're still within that. And so that's where they're actually got to bring that up to. Right there, you can see some of the B. Jackson construction there. They have some mini X's. That's the entrance to Trail Ridge Estates. They've been bringing that up. Finally, they've got it up through Bringhurst Lane under the highway, and they're coming. They actually probably going to have to trench across the highway because they're not able to get across the bottom either. They're trying to do that right now. They're making one last ditch effort to try to do it. So you can see where that blue truck is right now. That's where they'll be trenching up to probably roughly, and then they will cross and then get into that
Vault right
that
there.
vault right there. So that's kind of where we're at. Basically Rocky Mountain Power, they have, well, let me go back. Civil Science has gotten us a quote to do the model and determine the the additional right-of-ways that we need. Also, as well as possibly doing also doing the power design from that vault that I was talking about there by Choya Creek entrance up. Well, so we have that. That was some of the things that we were trying to get for UDOT, and then we'll discuss that on Friday. B. Jackson, they're continuing to work on that. The Rocky Mountain Power is changing the scope of their work just a little bit, and so their actual cost of pulling that power up will be a little bit less as well, because they were going to run the power as if they were putting it down inside of a proposed new subdivision as well. So there was some cost there. So one last thing you will start seeing, as we will see Rocky Mountain Power as close as tomorrow, is what I've told by Rocky Mountain Power. They're actually pulling power through the conduits from the pump house down. They're starting at the top and pulling infrastructure that way first.
Nice.
And so they're hoping by the time that they get tied in here at the bottom, they'll be back down, they'll be down across that bridge and into that vault that we're talking about. And if that's the case, they could very easily have power before the end of the year to our water pumps, so that we could actually start filling our water tank up on the other side.
How's our PRV design coming on that?
It's approved. The PRV is, we have a cost, Scott, the Firelight has a cost, and they have actually asked Jed Palmer to start installing that as quick
Okay.
as they can get the parts.
Perfect.
So they're moving forward on that.
And where is that? Is that down towards Westfield Road?
It's
plan?
actually on the proposed, if you're familiar there, it's called Pine Drive, which is just north of it's on the very south end of what they call the old racetrack. So it'll be knocking the pressures down, so that by the time it gets down to Westfield Road, we won't have extremely high pressures.
Perfect.
And so that's pretty much what we're doing. Like I say, I'll know
That's
more.
good. That's all positive, everything moving forward.
Chuck
I just
has a
have
question. Yeah.
one thing to kind of interject into this. For over a year now, and working with the various contractors and so forth, I've been having them scoop up special geological rocks, and over on the racetrack, you'll see a whole line of them along there that we had put there that were going to either be used here or in the new city center that Firelight's planning.
Gotcha.
In your pictures there, you had that picture of that boulder that was down alongside the, last time I looked at that a few days ago, all that basalt out there is called columnar basalt that makes the cap. And that one piece is laying over at the side. It looks to me like it's a perfect piece of columnar basalt, which could serve either here or over where the rest of those rocks are. I don't know if it can be done, it can be moved, or
Yeah.
take a look at it when you're out there driving around tomorrow, and you'll see that it's either 6-sided or 8-sided big column, and it looked to be a perfect one. Be something we'd like to have around here, I think. So just take a look, see what you think of the idea, and
Okay.
before they smash it all up.
Yeah, I can.
It's all dirty in that picture.
So we are still having, as of to right this minute, we're still having our construction meeting tomorrow morning.
Right, okay.
So
I'll be
we can
halfway
discuss
to-
that then. Yeah.
I'll be halfway to Salt Lake City by then.
Oh, we'll discuss it.
Hey Darren,
Yes.
on, for our TRE residents, so if they do have to trench across the entrance there, they're gonna do they're gonna do one lane first and then
Yeah.
plate it, and then they'll do the other lane. Okay.
Yeah, I
And
would
then
imagine they'd plate it or they would just backfill it and have a, bit of a little bump
Okay,
there. They
and
will-
then if they do have to do that, when will it be re-asphalted, or is that?
Almost immediately. So the
Okay.
ones they've done down in Bringhurst Lane, they've re-asphalted them immediately.
Okay,
I think they are using hot mix, but it will have to meet our spec.
right.
And they will have to, any paint stripes that they disturb, they're going to have to put those back as well.
Okay, and then if they have to go across 17,
Yeah,
then they're gonna do one lane again, and it's gonna be that way you
It'll
got an
be-
estimate of how long that would take?
they say they're hoping that they could trench it in probably 2 days. But they've got to open it back up at night somehow and slow traffic down. So they're working with Judd Palmer as well to try to maybe come out with a better solution to where possibly putting some of the southbound lane in the new asphalt or do something. They don't know yet.
Okay.
That's just a real quick concept thought than
Okay.
anything.
And then when they pull up for Choya, is that gonna go the same thing for Choya? They're gonna have to pull
No,
it across it?
They won't go that far.
It won't go- okay.
Yeah, they won't go that far. They're gonna stop, like I say, they're gonna stop about where that blue truck is that you're seeing there.
Oh, and then it's gonna
And then
cross
it's-
right
and it's
there,
gonna cross.
which is where they're at right now.
Yeah, so
today.
you can see
Okay.
it starting to curve and diverge away from the
Yep.
existing lanes right there. That's where they'll come across.
Okay,
Darren, when they do 17, they got to use CLSM, don't they? And that
Yes.
takes 48 hours to set up on one half
On the,
crossing of 17.
yeah.
So
Um,
that'll take 4 days minimum.
They're probably gonna try to do something to waive that, because that's gonna be in the shoulder in less than.
Well, it'll be right in a travel lane. They'll come right up.
In the future. road,
Yes,
it's gonna
The
be
future road, it won't
In the
be.
future, it will be in the
Probably gonna let
shoulder.
yeah.
Get away with it since it's a construction zone or something, but.
Right.
My guess.
We'll just,
We'll see what happens.
yeah, I'll,
And they can always plate it. They can put the stuff down and plate over the top of it and drive over plates while it's.
Yeah, they don't let you pull the plates and asphalt for 48 hours.
Yeah.
It's usually on CLSM, but
yeah, it's a little
I'd be
bit of a.
shocked if they let you not do that across the asphalt of 17. But
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, actually, with UDOT right on site, and they just basically said, we'll have to look at the replacement asphalt there and what you're going to do and work alongside JP, and technically our project goes to the south entrance or the south side of the entrance of Trail Ridge Estates. So that's actively JP's
Job site.
project.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question real quick.
yeah.
Are there going to be traffic lights between Choya and Trail Ridge anywhere in that area?
On a,
At this
on
time,
a
no.
permanent basis, no. They might, during construction, they might put up one of those timed ones where it's a one lane
While they're doing the tie-in.
while they're doing the tie-ins so that people will be safe that way.
Yeah, I don't understand exactly how the traffic flow is going to go, but we live in Trail Ridge, and as we come out, sometimes there's traffic coming both ways, and you're thinking, how are we going to navigate this when all
Yeah.
these cars are coming out of the toll road, not toll road?
Yeah. If you'd like sometime, stop in the office and we'll sit down and I'll show you the plans and kind of show you, it makes a lot of sense if you can see it on a map.
So you can assure me no one's going to get killed once it gets
Yeah,
around.
if you could give that
I can't-
assurance
I
to
can't assure
anywhere,
anybody.
any place, I would like to know.
Yeah, I can't assure
So,
anybody's gonna get killed. I know that they're doing, everything that they design is to UDOT
UDOT
specifications and the manual on uniform traffic control also tries to ensure that and they also hold to a federal highway standard as well when they do that. Same thing with the traffic control. There's been some questions about the traffic control and whether it's really meeting UDOT standards and specifications. They've recently just had a lot of concerns, especially with that person that was running from the police. And then there was a fatality there, which is unfortunate, but the gentleman was doing more than double the speed that somebody should be doing through there. And, and if somebody's doing that, if they're not obeying traffic signs and laws, obviously I can't guarantee anybody's going to safety.
Yeah, he was going over 100.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would love to show you sometime if you have a minute.
thank you, Darren. That was awesome.
Thank
It's
you.
looking good. I think we can maybe see that pinpoint of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
dim.
It's really dim, it's really tiny, but we can maybe start seeing it, so.
I'd love to see what you're doing with that drone though.
Oh.
That helps everybody.
Yeah, those
Oh,
are,
yeah.
that's great,
That's
Darren.
nice.
Yeah, for sure.
You're
Good
welcome.
job.
No, not a problem.
All right, we're going to move on to our public forum. That's where anyone from the public can come up and state their name, and they have 3 minutes to talk about anything that is not on the agenda. All right, well, we're going to close our public forum and move on to business item F. 1, discuss and possible action on Washington County Water Conservancy District reuse authorization contract. Kayla, how we doing?
So Ben and I had a good meeting with counsel for the district. Ben put together a PowerPoint summarizing some of the questions that were brought up last time and just the responses we received. So I'll turn it over to Ben.
Yeah,
So
let's
that's
do it.
in PowerPoint.
Let's get into this again. So we have kind of how I wanted to start here was just talk about why we are required to have a reuse authorization contract. I think that's a good foundational question. Previously, I hadn't read state code that requires this. I just knew that it existed. It's actually very simple language, and it only has 2 requirements. So if another entity is processing reuse water for a separate entity, an agreement has to take place, and there are 2 requirements. Essentially, Tokerville has to consent to the reuse water under each water right. So we're consenting to essentially reusing our water right. And we have to agree that the proposed use of the water under each water right is consistent with the underlying water right. So basically all that means is that we're using the same, it's for the same purpose that the water right is originally being used for. You can't change the purpose of that water. So the next few slides, essentially all I'm doing here is I'm in red is the question that we asked, and it may be a little bit simplified just for ease of discussion. But as we met with Gary was the primary, he kind of led a lot of the questions. These are questions that staff had, that Kayla had, that I had, but also that Gary had. And we tried to distill the answer very simply. So these are kind of just the highlight of all the questions and the responses that we came up with or that the Conservancy District provided to us. So there's a question of what is minimum delivery. And here I also have the page reference and section if you care to reference that. But minimum delivery is simply put, it's the amount of water that the district agrees to provide the city. So it's after everything is said and done, the district is guaranteeing this water. It's not at no cost. We still pay a wholesale rate, but they guarantee a certain amount of this reuse water to the city for irrigation purposes. It is noteworthy to say that unused water is forfeited at the end of the calendar year. So if we go in and we only use, say, I don't know the numbers exactly, but say we have 150 acre feet of reuse water available, it doesn't carry over year to year. There's no water bank essentially that we can draw from in future years. It's kind of use it in the year or lose it.
And well, and I've argued this point, that's kind of, I don't agree with it because what makes us want to be water conscious if we don't use all our water, we just don't get to have it. So we're trying to make everything as efficient as possible, but then we don't use our water, but we could have used our water and had more green stuff, but we lost it in the end. So it's one of those double-edged.
And the agreement does kind of touch on that even a little bit deeper. It says, the district doesn't service storage facilities for this water.
Yeah.
And so it can be sold to either other entities or other partners. And a lot of times throughout the contract, other partners will be ag use. That will be the purpose there.
So what happens, a year comes along and we use up all the water and we need some more?
As long as the water is available, we could still purchase that at the same rate. It's just that there may come a situation where everybody has maximized their allocation And there may come a point when there is no water available for that use.
And to further the mayor's question from previous, if we don't use our allotted in the calendar year, they're not gonna,
They're not going to pay us for any extra.
well, no, I mean, they're not, yeah, that'd be nice too. They're not gonna readjust it the following year, correct, and lower it?
That's correct. Yeah. It's
They
not,
won't do
there's
that.
no like adjudication process.
Is, as the city grows and we create more reuse water, does that amount go up with the amount of water that we create back into the system?
No, because it's derived from the city's current water rights,
Okay.
which we are not anticipating to increase. Over
We're
time.
not, you're right, because the excess water we're going to get, we're going to buy from the districts.
That said, the water that we will then be buying culinary grade water that more water would flow to the treatment plant. That's a good point. That would be available for treatment that will go up to the reservoir, but it's just not guaranteed
Okay.
that it would be available.
So reused water is reused water. So is the whole gist behind this is to get us to use reused water so they could steal our other culinary water?
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know that I would use those terms
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't want to give up any rights to our culinary water. and
We
trade
still
it for
have the
reuse.
same, we still have our water rights, but our irrigation is, they want to use our irrigation for drinking water instead of irrigation water and use water out of the reservoir for irrigation water. So we
But
still
if they-
own the
if
same
they
amount of
don't-
drinking water rights.
If they don't have enough reuse water to supply us, we can still use our culinary water.
We have our own.
Or are we losing that right?
No,
No, that and that we are not losing any rights.
right,
Because
correct.
I say, I don't like it. I don't like the Washington County Water Conservancy District. I don't want to lose to them one more time. So I'm very skeptical about them and I have I didn't get in time with this, but I'm having my guy look over this legal because I don't want to lose any rights to our culinary water, our rights to use it, our rights to have it in place of, I'll use the reuse for irrigation, but if there's no irrigation, I'm going to expect to have.
But, and the nice thing though is about the reservoir we're building up there, it might not be reuse water, but we just, the water comes off the mountain we're going to use for,
Maybe a mix.
yeah, we're going to get a little bit of reuse mix. The amount of water we're going to get for the first couple of years that the sewer plants are operating is probably not going to be very much water, really. And, you know, it's not going to pump that much water up there to start, but
Reservoir and it comes back.
exactly. It mixes with the water we collect off the mountain, mixes in and then comes back to us.
I just don't want to make
So-
a mistake that was 20 years ago and we lost some water and I just don't want to.
I don't want to lose any water, yeah.
So to
Further
further,
be controlled
yeah,
by this
so,
entity.
so to further what Wayne is asking, right now we get X amount of culinary water out of the spring.
Mhm.
And we get Y amount of water out of the spring for secondary water, correct?
Correct.
That is
Okay,
correct.
so when this goes through, we're still gonna get X amount and Y amount, but it's all gonna be culinary water? Or we're losing that Y amount, which is the secondary?
We're not losing the water, it's just going to come from another source.
So the irrigation water right now, those water rights that are the irrigation water rights,
Right,
Tokerville City does not own those water rights.
Yeah, that is.
The Astric, or the water district owns those water rights.
okay.
They put that water into the Tokerville secondary water system right now. That's how they feed it.
Okay.
That's how they fed it for the last 25 years-ish.
And I think it's very important to be clear. This is and I'll get to the slide on this. This is increasing the guaranteed amount of water that comes to the city. We do have to pay for it, but it's increasing. We actually will receive new water rights as a result of
Yes,
this.
our amount of water that we get will be more than what we're getting. Because we'll have the culinary water we have now, we'll have the irrigation water, plus we'll have the reuse water.
And right now you have no irrigation water right.
Right.
Wayne, I'm not trying to be a salesperson here.
We lost that water.
You sold them.
Because
You sold that- we sold
of
that
bad
water.
Decisions, in my opinion, we lost that water.
Yep.
So how do we keep our good quality water for drinking if we're gonna get the mixed water?
We're not going to get mixed water for
We're gonna
drinking.
mix from Cotton Well, it's already mixing now.
Oh, yeah, well,
Because
yeah.
that's some of the best tasting water in the country around here.
Mhm.
We've lost out on that. I still want to lose any more.
Right.
I'm all for reuse 100%. But I don't want to trade reuse for any kind of water right.
Staff and city attorney, we've spent a lot of time going over this contract. We've met with the district 3 or 4 times, being very critical of this agreement. We've done our best to essentially represent the city as best, and city and its residents as best as possible.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just echo what's been said. We won't be giving up water, but we will be gaining water. So I think Ben summarized it perfectly.
Go ahead. Sorry, interrupt you.
No, this is great. This is the conversation we want to have. We essentially want to clear the air on this, and the council has time. We still have time to get comfortable with this contract. So I don't want anybody to feel rushed at this point.
Like an hour.
So another thing that we touched on was the physical water. What is this doing with the actual water that's being delivered either to the upper pond that supplies the irrigation system? And the district so the question was, does this mean the district will substitute potable water use for reuse water? The whole purpose of the reuse program is to free up drinking grade water that's currently being used for irrigation so that it can be used exclusively for drinking grade water to be delivered to homes. And through irrigation systems, we then have this type 1 reuse water, which is safe for irrigation. So the district is still in the planning stages for reuse delivery from the treatment plant, the future treatment plant, to the delivery point, which is the upper pond. They are looking at, a pipeline will be built from the treatment plant to the upper pond and then into the reservoir. It could make sense for them to first build a pond in Laverton, and they will still continue to supply water from the springs into the irrigation system up into the upper pond. What this means is that there may be a year or two where we still get that same water in the irrigation system, but the guaranteed minimum delivery is still the same amount of water. It's just, it may or may not be actual reuse water in the system while this infrastructure is constructed. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So physical water may or may not be this treated water, but they are still guaranteeing it. Okay, so depletion accounting. This is really important to understand because from our water source, which is the springs, until water gets to the treatment plant, there is essentially depletion in that water. When we pump a gallon from the springs or when we draw a gallon from the springs, that doesn't mean a gallon is landing at the treatment center, right? Because we have a number of connections that are using it for irrigation. There's some just kind of natural, there's system losses. I think I identified those. So from the source to Confluence Park treatment facility, you have irrigation losses, you have natural system losses, and they used a calculation that was a 6-year average from Laverton and Tokerville for the source water versus the sewer return water. And so they have this depletion. So there's 2 stages of depletion. This is the first one. And that's a pretty significant loss from the source to the treatment plant because of these system losses and for irrigation use. The second stage of depletion is post-treatment to delivery point. So you have some treatment losses. You also have evaporation losses that occur at the reservoir and at the pond. And so ultimately, the final number on this, we end up with less than 50% of the water that we draw from the springs that is the guaranteed minimum delivery.
That's better than I thought it would be, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to remove a bunch of irrigation
You will too.
out of that source from the spring.
Well,
But that's not our water that's coming into the system at that time.
they're talking about culinary water. They're talking about the culinary water, but people are putting on the grass, not.
So we have a number of residents.
You're going to remove a bunch of that culinary irrigation water.
No. That's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about any of our culinary irrigation water now. They're talking about the culinary water that comes out and goes into our culinary system, that people put on their grass.
Or they flush down.
We're not talking about our irrigation water.
Yeah, it's coming from the same point.
Well, yeah, but that's not how they're not calculating what we're putting in our irrigation system.
So that first stage from the source, they're taking all the water coming out of the spring.
No,
No, the culinary water, the one.
just the culinary
what-
water from
Yep.
So they're
Tocqueville.
separating that irrigation water down to connections that do not have
Yes,
secondary water.
yes.
Okay, so then we have the post-treatment losses that I identified. And like I said, that drops the actual water available for minimum delivery to less than 50% of what's drawn from the springs. That could be subject to change over time. This is this last bullet point. Initially, I approached the Conservancy District and said, these are all engineering estimates.
Yeah.
What if at the end of the day, it turns out that that this number is overly conservative and we should have more water?
Yeah.
This is where we have to be realistic about what's happening here. It's highly unlikely that they revisit the depletion accounting in favor of the city, because it's what was I was trying to say here? Plausible if insufficient water is received for treatment. What I was trying to say is simply that they will revisit depletion accounting if they find they're not getting enough water at the treatment plant, or if the evaporation losses are too high. It's likely that we revisit that to,
We get a bigger haircut.
yeah, it's not favorable to the city. It's not likely that it's revisited as it's more favorable to the city, because it's very difficult to measure exactly, where that comes from. And this is my interpretation. This is not legal opinion. This is just, it's one of those things where it's highly unlikely that it's more favorable than they're presenting it at this point, because it's it would essentially provide a safety net. It's
Well, I
possible.
know, and one of the things they're calculating sewer, what we're getting. But I think we'll get a better number when that new sewer plant is online, because they will have a meter. So Ash Creek will meter how much is coming in from Tocqueville.
Yeah.
And they might be receiving more than what they think. So
And
that's something we got to,
And that would be something that we would have to be very proactive about, and we would have to take
and say,
to
hey, instead
the
of
district
a
and
million
say-
gallons a day,
Yep.
you're getting 1.5 million gallons a day from Tocqueville.
So
So-
one of you may be more familiar with it. They're currently using a meter that's after Laverkin.
Right.
So I
It's-
don't know where that is, but it's before the ponds, but it's somewhere between Laverkin and the ponds where they're measuring that water. Depletion accounting is important. Again, it's all engineering estimate. The first stage of depletion has been approved by the state engineer for drinking water. The second one is an engineering estimate that is essentially that one is actually significantly less. I think the post-treatment to delivery point is 17% of what's left. So it ends up a smaller chunk. Any questions on depletion accounting? So all this is leading to, hang on, I'm going to go forward. All of this depletion accounting, what this is leading to is, what is our water right? What is the guaranteed minimum delivery? Because after this, the question that this slide addresses is, who will own the reuse water rights, and are we allowing the district to act outside of the city's best interest in change applications? So the city, like I said, the city will actually receive new water rights from the state engineer. So we will get reuse water rights that authorizes the city to use those reuse water rights. They will issued by the division of whatever DWRI is. I forget the acronym.
Drinking water
rights. Division of
Department of
water.
Yeah.
Division of water rights.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
I'm thinking of the other one.
So this agreement allows the Conservancy District to file for that right on behalf of the city. And it allows the Tocqueville reuse water right to be used within the district service area if Tocqueville's full demand is not used. So they, like we've said earlier, they can use that water elsewhere outside the system if we're not using all of it. However, this is something that Kayla pointed out and reminded me of today. It requires a city agreement prior to, so we have to sign off on this change application. We're not just giving them full access to make change applications on behalf of the city. So the city's water rights are still protected in our best interest.
Right. The city has to approve any of these change applications. So essentially the way I read it is, once the Conservancy District has satisfied its delivery obligations, it may have this additional reuse water, and the question is what to do with it. So their solution is that they file a change application essentially to use this water for a purpose other than what it's currently designated. And in order to do that, they would need the city's approval. So they would work with the city and you would have to get approval before they could do such a thing.
Ongoing maintenance obligation. There is a part of this contract that I think all of us have questioned who've reviewed the contract, says that, I don't remember the language exactly, but it basically just says that the city's agreeing to maintain our own system. So the question is, does this contract unnecessarily obligate the city to future expenses it wouldn't otherwise incur? The answer to that is no. We're already obligated to our residents and to the state to maintain this system in good working order. Another question was, can we clearly define the beginning of the municipal system in Section 9? So when you are prepared to approve this contract, we're approving it as to form, and these exhibits that are not yet included will be more clearly defined. For Tokerville, this is pretty cut and dry. This is the delivery point is the effluent of the upper pond. That's the delivery point. And our system, while technically not owned by the city yet,
Right.
It may be at some point in the future, but the delivery point is that upper pond.
So this is obligating us to the ongoing operation and maintenance of that system in this town.
Repair, maintain, and replace. Yes, your
They
own
want us to
system.
take over.
We have a contract until 27, so by then they want us to have the irrigation in our own name.
So not today. When we sign this contract, it doesn't mean that today, because this is not the city assuming TSWS.
Not yet.
That's not this. This actually, as of today, this doesn't obligate us to maintaining any system because it's not the city's system right now. It's still the district system.
All the pipes.
I don't read it that way.
So this is on page.
Because you're obligated right now, the city shall perform all operations and maintenance and replacement of the municipal system.
In our current drinking water, we do, but in the reuse, we don't have the reuse system and we don't own the TSWS
So we're free and clear of that at the moment.
at the moment.
At the moment.
At the moment, until we decide to take over
Yeah, I agree with that.
TSWS.
Yep. What else?
Let's do the next one. What else do we have? Wholesale rates. So this is another question. How much will the district be charging as a wholesale rate for this reuse water? The question is, how can we agree to this contract as rates are not yet established? How will rates be set? So rates are set. The procedure for rate setting is outlined in the regional water supply agreement. Rates are set to pay for operations and maintenance, capital facility reserves, debt service. So it's set by the board of the Conservancy District. And there's formulas, there's studies that happen to set that rate. This is a question that came up in our recent conversation with the district. Could reuse water cost more than drinking water? And the reason that this is an interesting question is because all of this is new infrastructure. New infrastructure is very expensive. Kind of the initial costs are very high. Construction cost a lot more now than they did 20 years ago. The answer to this is in practice, the reuse water could technically cost more, but rates will be set for raw and treated water concurrently and within the context of reuse water freeing up drinking water. So basically what this means is that technically reuse water could cost more, but in reality, when water rates are set, the drinking grade water will always be higher than reuse water, because the reason we're doing reuse water is to free up drinking grade water.
Well, do you think that I want to use more than 10,000 gallons for my water my lawn? And at this, there's no way I can see that's going to work.
Well, you still have your irrigation water, which hasn't changed.
Yeah, but they're
And then-
going to take that and make us have the reuse, which is okay.
Well,
But how does that-
let's go back. They are not taking our irrigation water. We still will receive the same amount of irrigation water we have. The reuse water is on top of that amount of water. So we're gaining more irrigation rights we are going to receive more water rights by having, so you're still going to have your irrigation. Now we just have more irrigation water to go further. And-
How they provide the water to your irrigation system is basically, this gives it a whole nother bank of water.
Yes, it gives us more water to put into the irrigation system.
And
So
so.
It does, but your system that you're installing could be
There is no
very,
system.
very, very expensive.
There is
So
no
we don't
system.
have, we're unknown on what the rates they might want to charge.
The only system for the reuse water is a line that comes from Confluence Park and pumps to the
upper
to the
pond.
upper pond. That's it. That's the whole system.
So they're just putting in that 24 inch right now.
But that
24
inch
inch
is
comes-
the bad one.
That 24 inch no, that one,
That's
that
coming from the
24
pond.
inch is coming from the new reservoir into our pond.
It's gonna tie in,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that unknown, and I don't want to end up
That has
paying.
nothing to do with reuse.
That is, yeah.
The reuse, no,
No,
it's not.
that
The
is
only
not.
reuse line will be from Confluence to Pond.
Now, they could put it in that and pump, they could pump from there back up the reservoir. If we were making too much reuse water, we don't have a place to put it, they can put it
That's
up there.
their water. They can shuffle the water at that point.
Right.
But
But like we're saying, we still have our same amount of drinking water. We still have our same amount of irrigation water, but now we're gaining enough more water rights to go on top of our irrigation water.
We are, but we don't know the rates.
We don't. We don't.
We don't know the rates, and them guys like to buy a lot of brand new pickups. So we don't know them rates. You know, I mean, I see 50 to 100 of those driving around. So those rates could be, I mean.
Well, that's just it. We don't know the rights, but the rates, but the rates will be cheaper than culinary water. Even though it might cost more, it will be cheaper than culinary water.
So we're gonna lower our chlorine water down about 20.
Yeah, no, because by law, we can't. Yeah, I wish we could, but we can't. So,
Is that a fact? I can't get it from that until I get the answers that I feel comfortable with.
and I don't know if we're gonna have those answers for 2 years on the
Well, I
rate.
need to prove this point. I wanna, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. We're not gonna know water rates until this is up and operational. It's just a guess.
And water rates are always subject-
Citizens. I don't want citizens coming here and just wanting to cut our heads off. 'cause we-
Well, here's the one thing you can tell them is we are not losing any water rates. We are gaining water
We're
rights.
gaining rates, but we're not sure on the rates.
Right. And
And our
if we,
rates might go up if we adopt.
but
that
if we
system.
don't use it, then we don't pay for
Your
it.
culinary will not go up.
Your culinary is not going to go up, your irrigations. So there's, it's just more water. That's what it comes down to. You know, the sewer district is pumping in $38 million just so we can make reuse water. That's just in our plant, in the Laverican plant, Confluence plant. So it's not just the water district. The sewer district is putting a ton of money into this. And then the water district's taking the water out of that super high dollar sewer plant just so they can pump it back up here for us. So we're basically, and they're doing that because they want to use the best drinking water source in the county is Tocqueville Springs. And that's their goal, is to use more of that as drinking and not for irrigation.
Yeah,
So
it's all this big circle because the sewer
It is.
district's gonna wanna charge more because they're putting out a lot of
the
effort down
sewer,
there.
they are, but the nice thing is that the sewer district has been managed so long, really good, that they had $20 million in the bank to pay for a big chunk of this, and they didn't have to borrow the whole amount. So, and then
That's nice.
with impact fees and everything else, that's actually, Joey can tell you about it, anytime, but that has been, managed very, very well in the sewer district, so.
And I like what you're doing, Ben. You're putting in the solution kind of or scenario for us. It's helpful. Like that a lot.
We've tried to be critical. We've tried to take a critical view of this situation. That wraps up kind of all of the questions that we came up with as it relates to this agreement. City Attorney.
So we got a couple more graphs or diagrams that are coming to us. We're going to table this tonight, right? So we can finish up a few things.
Yeah, and Gary.
And I know Gary wants to go through it
Yeah,
again. And he's
Councilman
out of
Chapes.
town.
Mhm.
So,
He wasn't here for the response to a lot of these
Well, I
questions
think
that he
I'll have
had.
more questions after a couple more days.
yeah, which is great. Yeah, cool. Let's get all the questions out that we can now.
I dig holes and bury them. I don't go through legal jargon.
That's why we have Ben and Kayla here. So,
The,
Great is on it.
is, when Firelight comes online, are they gonna have secondary water?
No.
no.
No, okay. And then there's no plan on upgrading our existing residents that don't have secondary water either, correct?
There is not.
Okay.
Basically, The existing system is as it is. It's not going to really expound unless Tokerville City
And,
in the future wants to expand it somehow.
Okay.
I can't see that.
okay, and just briefly, if you can explain to me why Firelight is not going to have TSW, secondary water?
We don't have the water.
Because the TSWS system right now has a geographical area that it will serve.
Okay.
And it's in there's a map.
Beyond
I can
that.
show you the
Yeah,
map.
no, yeah.
That area out there is not part of that geographical
Okay.
area that was ever anticipated to be served by the TSWS system.
Okay, and then for Ben or our attorney, what are the drawbacks or what are the, I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but what are the possible foreseeable or unforeseeable thoughts of having a 50-year contract?
Right. Well, I think something that's important to keep in mind is that this contract can be amended, right? Like it may not be a stagnant document for 50 years. So that's something that's important to keep in mind. I think the goal of this contract, and we talked this over with counsel and she emphasized this, is to set forth the processes for bringing this about. So I anticipate that there may be changes down the road. This may not be, like I said, a stagnant document that never changes. So from my perspective, I mean, 50 years is a long time, but at the same time, this can be amended.
The good thing is Kayla's young enough, she'll still be here in 50
Yeah.
years.
None of us will be, but.
The hypothetical scenario that I drew out of this, that I asked the district was, say there's some new technology 20 years from now that makes it really cheap for a city to treat our own water, and we could do that on our own. Does this preclude us from pursuing that as an option? And surprisingly, the answer was no, it doesn't. So, if it doesn't even lock us into that, the city would have reuse water. And I don't think there's any reason right now that we have reason to believe that treating our own water would get cheaper.
Yeah.
But if it did, it doesn't prevent us from doing that.
Yeah, we could only hope that technology come along and make it really cheap to clean water. That'd be amazing. Because the nice thing is the treatment plant that's being built in Confluence Park and now is state of the art. It is, it's really good technology. So, okay. Anything else on item 1? Yeah, absolutely.
Move that we table any further discussion at this meeting for the Washington County Conservancy District reuse authorization contract until we get a completed contract that we can vote on.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item F2, discuss the possible action on ordinance 2024, amending and restating in its entirety Title 10, Chapter 19 subdivisions of the Toccoa City Code to meet the requirements established by the Utah State Code. It was. This is something that's been going on for a while now, Darren. Is this something you want to?
I'm actually going to
I'll take
have
it.
Oh, perfect.
our zoning administrator
Yep.
Even
present
better.
that.
We're tired of hearing from Darren tonight anyways.
That's right.
So Planning Commission did pass this or recommend to pass this unanimously. They were happy with all the changes you made and the decisions you made when Riker came to present. So none of that has changed. This is just a checklist of some of the main things that changed that were mandated by the state. And important to remember that all those red lines in there, even though it looks like a lot, this is all coming down from the state. And everything that we've changed, besides a few things I'll go over at the end, we have to change. Those things that were discretionary, you made those decisions at that first meeting, and those are in here. So there's a pre-application meeting process established in here. We're not allowed to require that anymore according to the new state code. So, but we did have to make a process for it. So that was put in there. Dan and I created a policy because they are requiring us to have a clear checklist for what's required at each application throughout the process. And that'll be, if this passes, that'll come to you at the next meeting for adoption. Planning Commission did agree that we should keep that first public hearing at preliminary plat. And then the preliminary administrative land use authority is Planning Commission. That's for preliminary plat. And then the final land use authority is me and or Darren.
Because that's what the state's taken away from the city council.
Yep.
And if you remember when Riker's comments, he came and asked you who you would like to be the preliminary administrative land use authority, you basically said that we'd like the planning commission because the final plat does no longer comes to you guys.
Yep.
Or the planning commission.
So Emily, on that one, on, I guess it's page 25. So it reads, for the final plat, the final administrative land use authority shall be the planning and zoning administrator and or a city designee. So can we change the city designee to the,
It would be appointed by them.
huh?
Would be appointed by Darren.
So in my job description, I oversee the planning and zoning administrator as the assistant city manager. And so essentially, and in my, in that contract, it basically states that in the event that we don't have a planning and zoning administrator, I become that.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand that. I remember that from the contract. So rather than saying or a city designee, can we just say and or the assistant city manager?
He could designate.
So you can designate somebody else besides that?
Right. So basically, I because I have that in my contract and in my job description, basically gives me the authority. It's like I'm the supervisor over that department.
Right.
He may
So-
not always be the assistant city manager though, so I think putting it in there as.
And this,
The
I'll tell
Okay,
you,
well
I'll tell
then
you
let me ask
this.
the hypothetical. Who's it going to be if it's not Emily and it's not you?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we call out the positions will always be there. The planning and zoning administrator will always, it'll be one of those, it's something
Okay,
we don't
let's
plan
say
on getting
that-
rid
Let's
of.
say the planning and zoning administrator position is open for some reason
Gotcha.
and
And I'm gone.
you're gone. So who's the city designee?
I guess basically it'd be by the appointment. I don't know, maybe.
Okay, so I'm not comfortable with that.
No, so then it would go to the city manager. To assume the role of
That's-
assistant city manager.
That's fine.
The city
Can we-
manager
then can we-
designate whoever he sees.
I think it takes a chain of command that goes up that.
Back to the higher chain of command is down, right?
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
Joey.
So the reason it's written like that is to give us the leeway to get the job done, to take the handcuffs off.
Yeah.
So it's always going to go back up the ladder and someone from up in the ladder is going to say, can you take care of this?
Okay.
So if all of us are at a conference and Ben dies, I die, and
Yeah.
Emily dies,
Right.
it would go to the mayor.
Well, Emily's not dying.
Okay. I mean,
She could run by horse or something, but Emily's not dying.
that's fine. If we're
I'm-
comfortable with the state and city designee. I just
We've
like-
got that a lot in the code.
Yeah, no,
It also says that in our grading ordinance as well.
Yeah, no, I know. I've seen it and that's why I'm asking about it.
I was I had that same concern when we first do it because
Okay.
everybody thought I was going to be the planning and zoning administrator forever.
Right,
And then we hired a planning and zoning administrator other than me.
right.
And so that's why we threw in, and I believe that came from Matt or Heath that they put as or designee.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
cannot remember.
Okay. So, so the way you're explaining it then is it's going to be the city designee, but it's going to go up the chain, not down.
Yeah, it
Is
can't
that the
go.
best way to say
So our
that?
planning and zoning
Okay.
can't say, we're gonna have Hannah. sign,"
Yeah,
You know, she can't go that way. So it can go up and then come back down. So,
Okay, that's fine.
And it's important to remember this is the last and final sign off, so the engineering pool will have seen it by now.
Sure.
The joint
Yeah,
utility
no, I
committee, the
understand
attorney, all that, yeah.
Sure.
Talked about that.
Thank you.
So the land use authority has been taken away from city council, which is the voice of the people. Is that correct?
From the
From
The
state.
state took that.
From the
So-
state.
No, it didn't come from the state.
No, it did.
It come from the lobbyists.
Well, it came from the legislator,
Yeah, being lobbyists by the
but
lobbyists.
we can't change that.
So what they've done, and city councils and administration changes, if the city wants to be the certain way the city wants to be, I think it has the right to be that way. Now, if you get the final land use authority, be it Darren or whoever in the future, has a whole different vision than the town council.
But that's what the planning and zoning's for. That's why it goes to planning and zoning as preliminary plat before it gets to
And
The only thing
if
you
you,
take away is the final plat, the
Yeah.
very final decision on the final plat. All the zoning administration and public hearings, all that's been over for months.
And let
So
me,
we
let me
haven't
point
even
out, let me
talked
point
about
out
the
too,
last
this is,
signature on the thing.
yeah, let me point out really
That's true,
quick.
but the last signature makes the he's authority, he's signature. If he doesn't like it and wants that so bad, he signs it, we're stuck with it. Even though we had a
No.
public
It won't get
hearing.
that far. If
Right.
if it gets that far, we've already approved it, or planning commission, someone in the public hearing has to had happened prior to getting to that point. This is like step 9 of,
It could be
But
denied
it's
at
not coming
preliminary
to
plan.
us, ever.
It's not.
No.
But if
So-
they're not zoned for a subdivision or
So
whatever,
it's not
then they
coming
wouldn't have
to
gotten
us.
that far to begin
So
with.
now the group down here is making the sole decision for the
No.
city.
No,
No.
no, not even
Yeah,
close.
no, you're making a decision. You're
'Cause-
the final land use authority. You say, yep, that subdivision's
It
good.
doesn't work. That's not, you're missing 10 steps.
Tell me where the
It's kind of like,
pictures are.
Okay,
It's,
listen.
it's kind of like a building permit. Okay, you've got a subdivision, you've got a buildable lot, you've got everything there, and it comes down through the reviews from the different utility companies. It comes through the building inspector. It goes through and makes sure that all the everything's good that way. And basically, it's just saying, okay, who's the final person that says, okay, everything, all the steps have gone through to build this house. Who's going to say, okay, it's fine? And it's not. It's basically the final land use authority before the final plat gets. They're just saying, hey, we've met all the requirements in this zone as per our ordinance, and the city attorney has went through, made sure that all of the things are correct. The city engineer has gone through to make sure all the information is correct, as well as this planning and zoning administrator has gone through to make sure that all the lot sizes are correct, the frontages are correct, the setbacks correct, the road widths are correct, so that, the different things like that. All of those checks come before that gets to that final land use approval. It has to go. That's got to go through that process, and that's what we do right now. It
But
really
has to
is.
get through the planning commission first to get to these steps.
Yeah, and the final.
has to get through a zone change through.
If
us.
it needs a zone
If it
change.
If it needs it.
If it needs a
So
zone
this
change.
is not for zone change. This is
Right.
only for subdivision for single family. What is it, Emily?
Single
Townhome?
family, townhome, or
Or-
two family.
Or two family.
Okay, let's
So
go back to
duplex.
zone changes, just to get me clear. This doesn't take away the city's council opinion on a zone change.
No.
It's zone change still comes to you guys. All this does is if it's a permitted or existing or permitted or conditional use in that zone, they just have to go through the process. It doesn't have to continue to get more and more approvals.
So what has the state streamlined in this and taken out? Because
Timelines.
Timelines.
They
just-
place timelines
So we're not
on.
holding them
on
up for
us.
2 years,
Yeah.
just battling
Yeah.
back and forth.
And I tell you the truth, where it primarily was big issues were bigger cities such as St. George, Salt Lake, those bigger cities up north. Those cities were taking three to 8 months. When I worked in Hurricane, it was taking us 3 months, and I felt bad. But then I'd go down to St. George and heard that it was taking them over a year. Joey's told me it's been.
Mine took 9 months.
Yeah, and so I've heard that. So what they've done is they put timelines, and then maybe I'll just let Emily continue here so you can see the timelines on that we have to have the reviews done and back to them.
Yeah, I seen those.
Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
continue on. Sorry.
Sure, no,
I
it's
get
okay.
it.
Got it.
Thanks, Val.
So, yeah, they did introduce those review cycles. Darren and I decided, I think this was after the last meeting with Riker, that subdivision improvement plans would be due with the final plat rather than the preliminary plat. That was based on discussions with other municipalities and procedurally how we had been doing it in the past. So that gives us 30 days for our review cycles on preliminary plat and 40 at final plat, because we do have to also
Those are working days too.
Yeah. that's-
business days.
Business
That
days,
was
yeah, sorry.
clarified, yep.
So 40 days is 8 weeks. So,
That includes the, on preliminary plat, the public hearing and the JUC and everything,
Still
so.
quite speedy for you, really.
It is. We are actually pretty quick. We're a lot quicker than that. We don't have.
That's because you have experience.
I don't
in it.
have-
That's
yeah.
Because you have experience in it, you have a
Well,
good.
so Emily, the 4 review cycles, which for? What do we have there?
So
Yep. So within the first review cycle, if we see anything missing, any modifications or changes needed, we have to index that all and give it back to them. If we miss anything there, then it basically gives them a pass on that unless it affects public health, safety, or welfare. And then they bring it back to us with those changes. And if they have made all those changes, that starts our second review cycle.
And we have timeframes on each review cycle.
It's the same.
Okay. So
Unless-
40 days each time something changes, another 40 days to,
Yes.
we have or they have.
They have technically up to 6 months
They do,
in between,
okay.
but if they go longer than 30 days, then it gives us an additional 20 days.
Okay.
So then we would have 60 days if they take a long time bringing that back to us. They only get 4 chances to make those, and then it can be recommended for denial if they go past the 4 review cycles.
Thank you.
Yeah. Some other cleanup that we did, or changes that the planning commission or the city attorney, former city attorney recommended, were just mostly housekeeping, grammar, punctuation, capitalizing, and then these changes here. On this simple subdivision, there were some changes that you had decided to make there. We decided on 3 lots because they give us the power to do up to 10. And the way Riker had it written, it said that the state code gives us up to 10 lots. And then immediately after it said that we chose 3. So we just eliminated that first sentence just to remove any confusion.
We don't want anybody to get any ideas, they can get 10. So.
Exactly. Then there was, you talked about the timelines for expiration, 6 months plus those extensions if they need it. In there, it said that the preliminary plat would be expired if they didn't have an approved final plat within 6 months. We talked to Planning Commission about this and thought that if they didn't apply for a final plat in 6 months was more, given those review cycles, was probably a better timeline for them. It would be hard for them if they had to use a few of those review cycles to get it approved within 6 months. And then there was just some cleanup that you didn't see last time was a section about the subdivision improvement plans in preliminary plat, which we removed since we've moved those to the final plat. Darren and I had some suggestions for the fencing. We changed that. That'll be on page 39 to 40 in your packet there. We removed the language, I think, where it says that a building permit is only needed if it's over 6 feet. And we determined that a building permit should be required no matter what, and that there shouldn't be any fences over 6 feet. He also wanted to see that no fences could be built in the over 4 feet in that 25-foot setback in the front of a lot. So if you did want to put a fence in the front, that it would have to be 4 feet or lower than that. And to know that, and there's language in there showing that if it was in that 10-foot public utility easement, that it may be removed if any public utility company needed to get in there.
red line version is in your packet.
That one.
You want to pull that up?
Taking a minute to give it a sec.
It's a big document, yeah.
So with the fencing, Emily, and maybe Val, if I remember correctly, watching the YouTube video of your last planning commission, there was some discussion on the fencing and stuff. Do you remember any of that off the top of your head? There was some discussion on the heights and things like that, but it went through. Are we concerned at all with the being limited at 6 feet, Darren or Emily or anybody?
Well, typically, most other cities have not higher than 6 foot on that front yard. A lot of that comes from public safety, as we're talking about the police protection, things such as that. We just, we really wouldn't want to have a block wall that's 20 feet tall.
Right.
Or 10 feet. Yeah, that 6 is kind of not the average, it's kind of the norm for most of the cities in Washington County. There are a few exceptions to where you could go a little bit higher if your grade was lower in the backyard, things such as that. It's just so that the exposed part is not higher than 6 feet.
Okay, and this This fencing refers to 360 around the property?
Except
300 and what?
360 degrees
Around the property, it
Yeah,
covers
except for
all
the-
four sides of a
Except
property?
for,
But in the front yard, there's a 25-foot setback
Right.
for your house. We clarified it. It kind of, the previous code was getting at this, but it said, it didn't, it kind of went around it. But the thing is it's more of a 4-foot high, nothing higher than 4 feet. Because you see a lot of houses that'll have a white picket fence or a chain link fence right at the back of the sidewalk.
Right.
There is an existing 10-foot utility easement that exists right behind sidewalk in most residential areas. Inside that, those utility companies need to be able to get in there and work. They need to be able to do things. A lot of times they can get in there, but obviously if you had a 6-foot fence right at the back of sidewalk, you wouldn't even see the front of the houses.
Yeah.
Or something higher than that. And then the other concern was that we were talking about in the planning commission was the site triangles at the intersections of roads. So if you got a 6-foot wall, again, you can't see, it's just like a hedge.
Yep.
We have complaints with code enforcement trying to do that. It needs to be, like I say, a chain link fence or something to that effect if it gets above 4 feet, because a lot of people can't see if you have a two-way stop. You can't see if something's coming
Right.
if that site triangle is impeded.
Okay. And then does this apply between two property fencing?
Between?
Yeah. Two
It's 6
properties?
feet, yeah.
So if the grades are different on each side of the property, how do you decide? This is just for my own.
So
information.
yeah, so really you could go out to the new Firelight. Theirs don't exceed more than 6 feet and on one side or the other, but then you can also add a decorative fence on top of that, like a
see-through.
wrought iron fence or something to that
Right.
effect. That's what they kind of invest. And this is in our subdivision. So we need to think about this as new construction, new
Right.
subdivision.
This is going forward.
Going forward, and we
Yep.
would like to come back here in the next few months and propose something that would be for fences not in a subdivision on
Okay.
just parcels of ground.
Okay.
There could be some, because basically we don't get into the agricultural fence. We don't anything like that, and I don't know that we necessarily need to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Because ag land is a lot different. There's a lot of different scenarios, and trying to get all of those in one code is difficult.
Okay.
But we just noticed this. I noticed this probably 2-3 years ago, and it's taken us. It was Sean Huntsman and I sat down, and the previous chairman of the planning commission went over this quite extensively then, and just never got time to get it in to code into the changes. And then state mandates are forcing us. I said, let's make these. Well, we're right there too. So.
Was there a clear answer on that last question where there's a significant grade difference between two lots? So say you had, a 4-foot retaining wall, could you only go 2 feet higher on the other side? So it's where's
And
it?
you could expose 6 feet on one side.
And then the other side could be,
Now,
In most city codes, it tells you that you can measure from the shortest distance.
right.
So you can have a 20-foot wall on one side and a 6 on the other side.
We did not really go into that specific of where you measure from. So I
So you
don't.
go off the higher side, he gets 6 feet and the other guy might have 10 feet.
Yeah,
It says measured from the natural grade to the top of the fence.
so that natural grade would be on one side to the other side.
Right.
It could put 4 feet on the other, so the one guy could have a 8-foot walk or
Right.
wall in his yard.
Yeah.
The other guy could only be 6 feet.
Right. That was my question.
I
Okay.
didn't think we put that in there, but I guess we did.
Okay. So regardless, it's going to require a building permit now.
If it's, yeah, so most subdivisions that come in, they'll put in a wall.
Right.
If they don't, then we're going to require it to be a great permit, just because there's so many different scenarios. There's a lot of subdivisions out there that have a pad ready deal, but if they have a walkout basement, there's so much grade elevation. There's up to 10 to 12 feet difference from the first floor to the second floor in the grade and walking out. And then you've got also, and then there's retaining walls that come into that. So, there's a few of those types of scenarios that we just figured it would be good to have the developers build these walls If they don't, then we want to permit so that we can review it on a case by case basis so that we know that. Because most people don't understand the average homeowner doesn't understand what they can do and what they can't do. And I've had a bunch of them in subdivisions out in Almond Heights just contact me and talk about what the existing one was, and it was a little confusing. So we've taken those, made them less confusing. But if you have any questions there,
Yeah,
Do our
unless you
best.
disagree, then we could.
yeah, or if you
Change it.
disagree with what we've got, please let us know.
That's all I have, unless you have specific questions.
You guys have been busy on this one.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's been a while.
And we are trying to get it done before the end of the year.
To keep the state happy.
On your fences, though, they're required to put actual retaining before they can stack their block if they're gonna have a 20-foot.
Yeah, if they've got a retaining wall, then they could put a 6-foot fence on top of that retaining wall.
You can't stack the cinder block all the way up.
No, you can't do that.
That'd be engineered and has to be all sorts of stuff.
Exactly, yeah. That's why I like pad-ready subdivisions.
So what's next?
We just need a motion if we're done discussing.
Are you guys happy with it? You think you got it all? cleaned up?
Planning and zoning to give it an approval, 5-0.
It seems like every time we pass a code, we'll find something
Yeah.
within a few applications, but
There's always gonna be some.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you there's something that gets
I think
missed.
they did
You know,
a good job.
Emily and the planning and zoning and Darren put a lot of time into this, so.
And Sunrise did it first, and they've,
Yeah, so
they had
there was-
Riker do it, they've got an attorney on staff who reviewed it, and then we combed through it pretty
Fixed it.
a lot.
And then we've had our attorney comb through it, so, there's been a lot of eyes on it, but yeah, I will guarantee you there's not always just a perfect document out there.
Ready for motion?
Yeah,
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve business item F2, ordinance 2024.XX, amending and reinstating in its entirety Title 10, Chapter 19, subdivisions of Tokerville City Code.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Beautiful, man. 7:20 and 2 items. Good thing we didn't have 10 items tonight. Holy cow, guys. Just kidding. All right, we're going to move into calendar events. Tokerville Turkey Trot Trail Run is Thursday, coming right up November 28th. Center Street Park, 10 a.m. Tree lighting ceremony is Monday, December 2nd, here at Town Hall, 6 p.m. Reach Across America, Saturday, December 14th. Tokerville Cemetery at 9:30 a.m. And the Christmas lighting contest, you can sign up for it on Thursday, December 19th. So they can sign up to it up to that point, right? Okay. So up till the 19th, you can sign up to be in the contest.
We've talked about kind of abandoning the formal sign up and making it so that essentially anybody who has decorated is kind of
Is
automatically
automatically
considered for the contest.
I'm okay with that.
So if that's kind of, we have some.
How are we
support with that.
excluding a couple of, ringers? How are we doing that? Or they've decided not to be part of it?
Yeah, we decided not to be part of it.
Okay.
Gary
So
said
the
the same.
judges will need to be notified.
The three on the city
What
council
you
or
gotta do
not?
is you gotta put these guys as judges on board because they can't.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Make them judge.
That's what we did in the past.
Yeah, so there you go.
Do we have a prize?
Cash prize,
Cash prize, and what is the amount?
$150 for first place.
75 for second, 50 for third.
Thank you.
Perfect. 1 Bitcoin. I'll tell you a story about that. That was a third place prize, I remember at one place. 1 Bitcoin, so. All right, at this time, we do need to go into a closed session. I need a motion to do that. And so we will.
Everybody looks at me. Mayor, I'm making a motion to move into a closed session to discuss character, professional competence, physical or mental health of an individual. Strategy session to discuss collective bargaining, strategy session to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation, and strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or of lease real property, including any form of water rights or watershed.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, at this time, this part of the meeting is closed. We'll give a 5-minute recess. Todd, get up and stretch his knee.
Thank you.
Is that Red Bull one for you?
Just say, yeah, I like it. It's looking snap. Get his dog. City council.
I sent a call to Jake. Jake tried to call me and I hit text and it was still on yours.
Yeah, I know that.
Hey, tell me, we're city council. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. That's burn season.
What's wrong?
I miss burn season by a week.
It's already over.
I don't know.
I'm so frustrated that the northern end of the state tells us when our burn session is down here. I'm gonna write that up. Because they tell us to burn, but we're still having hot, dry, and then we need to burn in December, January, December, all this time is when we should be burning down.
It's just, I mean, now there's days.
The clear index, yeah. I'll call the fire.
better, but super easy formula that they use. Heat index, moisture content. That tells them if it's a good day or bad.
I know. Why can we not have, we don't have the inversion they have in Salt Lake. That's why we
Did they
don't
turn
have it up there.
Yeah,
Because they have these cold conversion and we're not the same spot.
Moisture index right